Guru said, what nu indeed loke in this world, Manushyendra, O your Majesty, to the Father, Atmakritaha, who has given this body, Kuman, a person, Pratikartum, to repay, Shama, is able, Yasya, of whom Prasada, by the mercy, Vindate, one enjoys superior life.
Translation. Guru replied, O your Majesty, who in this world can repay his debt to his father? By the mercy of one's father, one gets the human form of life. associate of the Supreme Lord. Purport: the Father gives the seed of the body, and the seed gradually grows and develops until it ultimately attains the developed human body with consciousness higher than that of the animals. And the human body went to be elevated to the higher planets, and furthermore one cultivates Krishna consciousness and to return home back to Godhead. This important human body is obtained by the grace of the Father, and therefore everyone is indebted to his Father. Of course, in other lives, one also gets a father and mother. Even cats and dogs have fathers and mothers. But in the human form of life, the father and mother can award their son the greatest benediction by teaching him to become a devotee. When one becomes a devotee, achieves the greatest benediction because he completely averts the repetition of birth and death. Therefore, the father who trains his child in Krishna consciousness is the most benevolent father in this world. It is said, Krishna Guru Nani everyone gets the father and mother, but if one gets the benediction of Krishna and Guru, he can conquer material nature and return home back to Godhead. Translation: Guru replied, O your Majesty, who in this world can repay his debt to his father? By the mercy of one's father, one gets the human life, which enables one to become an associate of the Supreme Lord. So this is the younger son speaking. In reply to his father's request to take his youth in exchange for his old age. So we see here that Guru is the only one who agrees to do this on the grounds that he has a debt to his father. So this, of course, is a common theme in Dharma, that the children have to respect the parents, because the parents give them life and protect them, and raise them, etc. So there's automatically a debt to the parents. This, of course, goes back further to their parents and their parents and their parents, because the parents also have parents. So, in other words, there is a great respect for one's lineage, not just father and mother, but the whole lineage, since one is the final product of that. So this is actually one of the debts one has. One has debt to father and mother, one has debts to the rishis, one has debts to the devatas, one has debts to all living entities, etc. So there's all sorts of debts. And so one has to pay these debts back by the karpanas. One offers water every day to the forefathers as a ritual to repay that debt. So the idea of repayment, or recognizing with gratitude the kindness of others, is actually a good thing. We should not be ungrateful in any way. And therefore, if we don't respond properly, that is called ingratitude, and we're not paying our debt back properly. So there's a whole procedure in Dharma for repaying one's debts to different living entities. So, though that is there, we can say, well, what's this got to do with spiritual life? Because it just leads to further bondage in the material world by getting debts to one's parents and debts to other persons, and having to oblige other people. One becomes entangled in the material world. So the answer here is given in the sense that it says here, Vindate Parama, which means by his mercy, one gets something higher. In other words, one can get spiritual life. So that, of course, is the most positive way to take that. Of course, one could say he is free from bad karmas, but if we take it in the most positive way, then you can say that the reason for the father is to give the child spiritual life, and therefore that is the debt that has to be paid. So that is the version of Bhagavatam. So we see in the Bhagavatam, it is said that No one is a father, no one is a mother, no one is even a guru, no one is any authority at all, a king or whatever, unless they can deliver their dependents from birth and death. So the only deliverance from birth and death is spiritual life. It cannot be done by anything material. You cannot save a person from death by material arrangements, by karma yoga or science or anything, medicine or anything. So the only practice is spiritual practice. So the idea here is that the one who gives one spiritual guidance to end the process of birth and death, that person is worthy of the greatest respect, rather than simply father, mother, whatever. So, though the precepts are there in Dharma for respecting mother and father and all these different persons, the implication is that they have to be respected because they are carrying out their functions properly, not just raising materially. That, of course, is one aspect, but the greatest aspect is spiritual life. So as Prabhupada says here, even cats and dogs have mothers and fathers. So what is the big deal with father and mother? It's not something special for the human being. So why we have to give such great respect to the father and mother? Why do the animals give respect to their fathers and mothers and whatever? So the reason is not just the material support that the fathers and mothers give, because even animals get that. So the real thing is that the parents can give spiritual guidance so that the person can get free from the process of birth and death. This the animals cannot do. So that's a special function of the parents. So not only parents, of course, any person can give that to the child. So all those persons are respectable. So therefore, it is also in Dharma there is the concept of respect. So yes, we give respect to the mother and father, we give respect to the grandfather, we give respect to relatives, we give respect to the king, we give respect to wealthy persons. There's all sorts of levels of respect. One gives respect to the guest. In fact, the guest is considered Narayana. But then who is the guest? Who is the best guest? And then the best guest is the devotee of the Lord. So he's the one you have to respect the most. So the greatest respect is given to the devotee of the Lord. Ultimately, the person who can give spiritual knowledge, he is the one that one gives the respect to. So, in this way, the ultimate purpose of all this respect in Dharma is to enable a person to advance spiritually, not just materially. So unfortunately, due to ignorance of the whole concept of Dharma, people get attached to the lower aspects, and therefore they insist on obedience to mother and father, etc., even when they're not in any way giving any spiritual life, or maybe giving the opposite, purely material life, and they expect complete compliance. So that has a positive and a negative effect. Positive, of course, is it keeps order, and people don't disobey their parents, and it's just like we can say, keeps the status quo in terms of family life. The negative aspect is, of course, that ultimately simple obedience is not going to satisfy the child. They simply have to obey for obedience sake, and the parents aren't giving anything spiritual at all. Then, ultimately, the children will feel dissatisfied. They're just getting some material benefits. So this is often the problem we find with children. They get frustrated with their parents because the parents say, how ungrateful you are. We're giving you everything. We give you money, we give you food, we give you a house, we educate you, and then you go run away and you don't look at us again. So they're expecting gratitude simply because of material things. Of course, that is there automatically. One should pay back debts in that sense. But why do the children do that? Why don't they feel anything? Because the material things are not that valuable ultimately. And they're looking for something else. They feel higher than simple material benefits or whatever. So therefore, this is the actual understanding that the real duty of the parents is to inculcate in the children the highest spiritual goal, by which the children can get the greatest satisfaction in life. Even if they don't renounce completely, at least by practicing spiritual life, they can balance out their life very nicely. So if that's not there, then there will be frustration of different sorts and problems. So therefore, that's the essence of this idea here that Guru is giving. That yes, we should have buried the father, but of course, the ultimate thing is the father is the one who enables one to get access to the Supreme Lord. So he can do this in two ways. One is directly. If he is knowledgeable, then he can give knowledge and guidance. Second, and if he doesn't know, then he can at least give guidance on who to go to get that knowledge. So therefore, even if he does not have good knowledge and is not quite so competent, at least he can help the dependent, the child, go to the proper source to get spiritual guidance. So there's no real excuse in that sense. So in this way, the father can fulfill his duty. In Dharma, we have this idea of respect to the father and mother. So that is the duty of the children. And the duty of the parents is also there. So if they don't fulfill their duties, how can the children respect the parents? So therefore, the parents also have to have a complete understanding of what is their duty in terms of children. So it goes beyond simply providing the material necessities. That is there for the animals also. So for the human being, there is also something special beyond supplying material things. So that is the other duty of the parents. So if they fulfill that duty, then fine. They're worthy of all respect by the children, whatever. So that is what Guru feels. He feels that, yes, I should respect the father because he has given spiritual guidance, etc. But unfortunately, we see that though he is giving respect to the father also, as we have seen before, actually is quite materially attached. He wanted his youth back. He wanted to enjoy further. And so he's not completely spiritual either. He has got some material attachments. Nevertheless, Guru has the ability to see the plus aspects of his father, and he's willing to sacrifice his youth and get his father's old age out of respect to whatever his father has given in terms of spiritual advancement. So in other words, he sees the positive aspect in spite of some negative qualities there in his father as well. So he looks at the positive aspect. So in some substance, therefore, though Dharma looks like it is encouraging material attachment through all of this respect to parents and lineage, etc. Ultimately, we see that the respect has a purpose, and that is because the parents are fulfilling their duties properly. And if they don't do that, then of course the respect may not be there. Therefore, the ultimate goal, even of Dharma, is to lead one into spiritual life. So this may be indirect or direct. Both are okay, but obviously the direct process is better. If it's indirect, then one may be led into what Sattva and Jnana and things like that eventually. Or a more practical course is that one can directly take to the process of bhakti. So bhakti is preferable because if one wants to get to spiritual life through jnana and yoga, then one needs high qualification. So one cannot go directly. If one is a Sudra, One can't even study the Vedas, what to speak of the Vedanta. And one is a Vaishya Kshatriya, they have less ability to study Jnana because they don't understand Vedanta logic. So one has to become a Brahmana before one can practice that type of spiritual life. So in that sense, it's all very indirect, the contribution that parents can give to their children to go on that path of Jnana. They have to just gradually elevate them until they get to become a Brahmana, and then they can study. However, if the parents directly encourage simply worship of the Supreme Lord in the process of bhakti, then that is open for everyone. So that's a direct spiritual development for everybody, not going indirectly up to becoming a Brahman and then doing Jnana. And the result is higher. Though we can say that Jnana and Yoga are para, or spiritual, because they can stop the process of birth and death and get you out of ignorance. The process of bhakti does that, but it goes further. And that is, it situates you in an internal relationship with the Supreme Lord in the spiritual world. So therefore, it's actually gives much more than the other processes. So therefore, in all cases, bhakti is preferable. Anybody can do it, and it gives a greater result. So therefore, that is the real para, or the spiritual goal. So if the parents can give that to the children, then they are functioning properly, and they're worthy of all respect by the children. It is not simply, though Bhagavatam says, yes, there's a father and a mother if they deliver you from birth and death, but it actually goes further than that. And the real way of doing that is to take the process of bhakti. And you go beyond birth and death, definitely, but you get an internal relationship with the Lord. So that is superior.
In the present age of Kali, where there is no relations in society, the children are more get influenced by their friends, and they interact with other friends rather than their parents. How we can get this spiritual intention of guiding them spiritually?
Oh yeah, there are other influences definitely on children, especially in the modern world, and it's becoming greater and greater, that influence. Still, though we have so many influences, ultimately, the way in which the parents raise the children in the first years is probably the most influential aspect of their life. So, of course, psychologists say that the first 6 months of the child's life actually is the most influential because whatever it learns in that period of 6 months determines how he acts the rest of his life. So that's basically mother and father, particularly the mother at that point, first 6 months. And that leaves the greatest impression of all. And all of the activities that a person does is simply determined by that. So whatever problems a person is having when he's 80 years old, you can trace back to when he came out of the womb and his mother did something to him. That's the problem that's reflected when he's 80 years old or 60 years old or whatever, or 40 years old. Of course, that's psychology. Of course, we go further than that. We say, obviously, you had your previous activities in your previous life, and your previous life, and your previous life, and your previous life also influencing as well. And of course, then you have your previous parents, and your previous parents, and your previous parents, and those influence as well. But in this lifetime, obviously, there is a great effect of your present parents. So therefore, the parents have a very big duty, especially in the younger years of the child. And that will create the influence on the child so that, in spite of everything else in the modern world, they don't get so much influence by that. We can give all sorts of excuses, of course, to this act in society, but ultimately, as I said, the influence of the parents is the greatest. And usually, we'll find that, other than that, that people have more effect than things. So no matter how much influence we get from so many things ultimately is people who affect people, even as adults. And therefore we say Sangha is very important. So Sangha as an adult is important, Sangha as a child is important, etc. So the first Sangha is the parents, later on they have friends. When the children are young, they cannot really choose who to associate with, so the parents have to also take a role in that. Who's the friends of the child? And they're responsible for that also. So that part is done when they do grow up, but then the children will have a better sense of who to associate with, etc. And all these other things will be less of a problem for them. In any case, sense objects are a problem for everybody in the material world, whether it's internet or whatever. And it's always been a problem, not only in the modern world. So therefore Krishna gives a warning in the Bhagavad Gita, your senses are uncontrolled and there's sense objects and you get attachment and you fall into illusion, etc. So it's not only in the modern age, it's always been there. Always will be, has been there since the beginning of the human body. So in any case it is there, maybe a little different nowadays due to internet and so many other things, but nevertheless it's the same, and the same solution is there. Ultimately we have to substitute higher taste for lower taste. And so we do that by engaging in bhakti.
Raj, in this case we're seeing about Guru wanting to immediately accept what his father wanted. That is in one sense that he wants to take up to the Krishna conscious path, which is a good thing from his side. But on the other side, as a son, what is the responsibility of the son to the father? That, okay, I'm taking up to Krishna consciousness, which is fine, my father is not able to guide me, but I have taken up to Krishna. What is the reciprocation that I should also see my parents to become Krishna conscious? Isn't that a responsibility? And how can we see that in Kuru's case where, he's only seeing from his side, which is okay. But then from his father's side, he wanted youth, he's just giving it away, but he didn't care about his spiritual life maybe. Mm-hmm. So what is that reciprocal responsibility of the son? Sometimes we also see some of our devotees, they come and take up Krishna consciousness. And then they say, my parents are karmis, and just reject him, right? So what's our responsibility in that?
Well, as it's also explained the word putra. So putra means he's the one who delivers the father from hell. So by his activities he should deliver the parents. So if he becomes sinful, obviously he doesn't deliver them. If he acts according to Dharma, it's better. If he becomes a devotee of the Lord, even better. In two ways. One, because even if his parents aren't devotees, they've got the security of that, and they can get spiritual advancement simply by being parents, in spite of the fact that they're not devotees. The other is, of course, he can give knowledge to his parents and help them also. So, twofold. Simply being a devotee is good for them, even if they don't become Krishna conscious. The other is, he can actually, if they're favorable, you can actually preach to them and engage them in devotional service also. So, both ways.
In this material world, nothing is permanent. But how do you say sadhu-sangha is eternal? In this material, nothing is permanent. Then how do we say sadhu-sangha is eternal?
In this sense that we're not looking here when we talk about association of devotees, which is a devotional process and is eternal. We're not looking here at the material bodies. So, the Atmas definitely are eternal, in any case, whether they're conditioned or non-conditioned. But in the spiritual world, all the Atmas there have spiritual bodies which are eternal, and there the Sangha is not just with the Atma, but they have their eternal spiritual bodies. In the material world, the devotees have material bodies, but the Atmas are eternal, and of course the bhakti that goes with them is also eternal. So simply the bodies which are temporary there. Spiritual world, the bodies are eternal. But in either case, the bhakti and the association of the devotees as Atmas is eternal.
And also, if the parents will not teach about Krishna consciousness to their children, will they go to hellish life after death?
If the parents don't,
The parents will not teach about Krishna consciousness
Oh,
to their
the
children.
parents-
To
the
their
parents-
children. Will they go to hellish life after death?
well, not necessarily. It depends on what the parents do. If the parents are sinful and they encourage their children to do sinful activity, definitely they don't have a very good if they act according to Dharma, then at least, but not bhakti, then at least by that punya they can stay as a human being and elevate or whatever.
Maharaj, is that true? Worshipping demigods will not take you back to Godhead?
Well, the devatas are material beings with material bodies. They are servants of the Supreme Lord. If one worships devatas, generally people do that simply for material benefits, and therefore that's all they get. If they worship those devatas with the idea that they're servants of the Lord, in order to help them surrender to the Lord, there's no problem, but that means they also have to accept the Supreme Lord. If they don't accept the Supreme Lord and they just accept the devatas, obviously they cannot pray to the devata, please take me to the Supreme Lord. So if they're just worshiping the devata as supreme, they can't get beyond this material world.
If they pray that they have to go back to Supreme Lord, go back to Godhead,
Yeah.
then they can...
Yeah, but then if they're doing that, then they should also directly worship the Lord and not avoid directly worshiping the Lord. So that should be the primary worship, and worship of the devatas is secondary. As an assistant.
And also, what is the bhukti? Bhukti.
Bhukti means material enjoyment, which could be either way. It could be bhukti according to dharma, or it could be adharma, either way. So we can do simple activities to get our enjoyment, or we can do it according to karma yoga and not break the rules, and that way it's a little bit safer. But in either case, it's material world, bondage in the material world.
Maharaj, you said like at a younger age, like it plays a major role in the child's life. But Ajamin was Ajamin had a very good childhood, but later on he changed into a sinful lifestyle. He had a sinful lifestyle later, Maharaj. So like
That was due to later association. He became influenced by the later association. So, yes, a childhood is good. It's not 100% guaranteed. Anything in the material world is not guaranteed, but because so many things can happen. But, of course, the other problem was that he was brought up nicely in one sense, but without money at all. So that's also a problem. So yes, his parents taught him, follow the rules and regulations of Dharma.
And Bhakti Vinod Thakur was such a great acharya, and only he could influence only 2 of his sons, whereas the other sons couldn't take to Bhakti. And how can, ordinary people like us, bring up the kids? Like maybe after a certain age, we let them off in childhood. We ourselves came to Bhakti at a later stage. Now, how can we influence our kids' minds?
Well, to whatever degree we can, that's all we can do. We can't be too attached. We do whatever we can. We can't force them. So if they take, fine. If they don't take, that's their own will. So we can't be too attached. So we do our best. So.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.